It's time for the Bleed Lows Podcast with your hosts, Alonso and Juan, Alicia Del Valle, and the babyface gimmick in the sky, Roger.
BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoff stats. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
And we are back with another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast, another weekly rewind edition, recapping the Dodgers' previous week of games on this current 9-game road trip that they are finishing up currently right now as we are recording in Arizona with a 3-game series there. But I am joined by new Dodgers beat contributing writer Adrian Medina. Adrian, it's good to have you on. Before we get into anything else about Dodgers, why don't you give a brief background of everything that you've done, where you're going to, what you're going to school for, and kind of just anything Dodgers related. What do you got?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name's Adrian. I am 20 years old, a college student, third-year college student at California State University of Long Beach. I started my journalism career basically this year writing for my school newspaper, the Daily 49er. And because of my love for baseball and for the love of the Dodgers, I started writing for the Dirtbags, which is our baseball team, which is a very historic team for any baseball lovers. And Dodgers to me are the number one team in not only baseball, but of sports, North American sports. So, joining you guys, it's an honor, it's a privilege, and I'm ready to get going.
Yeah, Adrian, I can't say enough about you joining us. And if you haven't gotten to read his post-game coverage for his school, go ahead and try to look him up on social media. We'll definitely link all that below. And then obviously, his post-game recaps and any other articles that he posts for the website, DodgersBeat.com. Be sure to look out that. But kind of going into what the video is about, and that is the Dodgers weekly recap. So the Dodgers, they began their 9-game road trip in Washington, D.C. with a 3-game set. I was there for all 3 games covering the team, kind of just seeing, pretty much what I wanted to see what they were going to do from that Sunday game, winning 10-0 against the Mets, and what they were going to do for the week ahead. And they pretty much impressed me all 3 games there in DC. They won in a variety of different ways, whether it was pitching, defense, the bullpen stepped up big. They had really key hits and key moments, especially in that third and final game where it seemed like it was a total team effort in that 2-1 win. But kind of before I give my thoughts and opinions, Adrian, what were your kind of thoughts about, the Dodgers sweep of the Nationals? Because, this was the same Nationals team that took 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers in LA, which, kind of ruffled some feathers for some of our fan base here. They thought the sky was falling, but it seemed like the Dodgers corrected ship and they started off this road series with a nice sweep. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, you said it. As you mentioned before, losing 2 out of 3 at home against the Nationals was kind of that really raised a lot of red flags for everyone to begin the series. I wasn't that, concerned about it, but they really did bounce back with this sweep. They played like a full team for all 3 games. And that was really the start after that Mets game. That was really the start to basically their road dominance that they're on right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like there was not a sense of urgency for these games. There was definitely a sense of trying to at least get back on track because, I've said that this Nationals team, they have a lot of really good players, a lot of good young players, and they have a lot of good young players that are getting ready to come up in the show in the next year or two. So I think this team is a little bit underrated. I think they'll be in, contention in the next year or two, but this is still a team that the Dodgers should be taking care of handedly. And they ended up doing that in all 3 games here against the Nationals. And honestly, I never got to see Ohtani play in person that close. And kind of just seeing his work ethic and then kind of the way he goes about his business. And especially that first game where they blew the Nationals out. I feel like, I don't want to sound like a homer, but I feel like if you're just a baseball fan in general, I kind of get the show, the Ohtani effect now, just because being there in person, seeing what he can do with the bat, it's probably even elevated more when you can see him pitch and hit as well. So I definitely think it's must-watch baseball. Those Nationals games were packed a little bit more than probably any other regular season in the past couple years, just because of how bad the Nationals have been. But I want to put some shine some lights on some other players, and I think one guy that I'm interested to see what the Dodgers are going to do, especially when certain pitchers come back in the rotation, is Landon Knack, because this is a guy, he's been in the minors for a while. He's one of those prospects that's starting to reach that age where he may age out, where either the Dodgers have to promote him or they have to trade him. And he doesn't have much overpowering stuff, but he gets the job done. Granted, both of his starts were against the Nationals, and he looked really good in both starts, got in some trouble, got out of some trouble, and he ended up getting his first victory in Washington. Adrian, what are you thinking about Landon Knack? Where do you see his role for this team going forward, especially with potentially Walker Buehler coming back on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, with his first start was as a major league start, a little shaky, but he was still good. He bounced back after that first inning of his first start, and then especially in his second game and his first win, I mean, he looked pretty solid, like he's been there before. So, which is a great sign. But I mean, as of right now, I feel like the Dodgers will tend to him more. They will, see what he still has. And who knows, maybe he'll just be a bullpen guy if he really looks up to it. But yeah, man, I was really excited for that call-up, for that Nat call-up, really. I really was. I was following him for just a bit. But yeah, it's really exciting to see him finally, come to fruition and him pitching really well.
Yeah, you could tell he was really happy to get that first win under his belt. I spoke to him after the game, and I'm very interested to see, what he does in his next future starts, because I did mention Walker Buehler's name. He still has one, rehab start remaining, and then they'll think about activating him from the roster to put him on the active roster. But it really just depends on how he bounces back. And I think the Dodgers, while they still continue to throw bullpen games here and there, they still benefit from having so much pitching depth that they don't have to necessarily, activate a Walker Buehler right away. Like, they can let him take his time, where I've always thought that he was going to come back in May. But seeing Landon Knack, perform well at this stage, credit to him, credit to the Dodgers for being patient with him. He can only help the team moving forward. And I think another guy that shined well in this series, that kind of put, the money where the wallet is Yamamoto. This guy probably pitched the best start of his career so far in DC. Almost got his head taken off by a line drive. That was exciting to see, and also terrifying, as in the words, of Dave Roberts. But what did you think about Yamamoto's start? Going 6 scoreless innings, especially after a kind of, 50-50 start against the Mets his last time out. But are you seeing a little bit more of Yamamoto, and are we starting to see glimpses of that $325 million man?
Yeah, he's definitely, getting comfortable. I wasn't expecting him to go from NPB ball to MLB ball so effortlessly. I knew it was going to take some time, and definitely his last start showed that he's getting used to, the new baseball that he's handling, and his command is getting a lot better. His off-speed stuff is just dominant. I mean, from the start, it's always been that. So that's always a highlight to see. But yeah, I'm glad that he's finally getting into the groove of things. And I mean, just a quick little knack. I mean, he has such quick reflexes. Like that liner back to him was just, I don't think anybody could have reacted as fast as he did. So, I mean, just basically is the $325 million man.
Yeah, I think someone mentioned on social media to me that he won, I think, 3 or 4 of Japan's version of the Gold Glove. And I think that showed, his reflexes to get that ball, because, me and the other beat writers were talking in the press box saying, hey, man, like, we're obviously hyping up this play now, but if his glove is an inch the other way, we're talking about a whole different scenario right there, a whole different outcome for not only just himself, but the Dodgers as a whole as well. So luckily he made that catch. We kind of had this discussion in previous episodes as well, and where we've kind of critiqued the Dodgers starting rotation in terms of how deep they go into ball games. And I think this series in particular, we kind of saw, the combination of, the rotation besides game 1 where Paxton didn't really go deep into the game. When you look at the starting rotation, do you want these guys to be going more than like 5-6 innings, or are you one of those guys that thinks, all right, it's only April and May. We got to take our time because we want them in healthy and ready to go in October?
I think the window of April through May, June-ish, maybe July is like a perfect time to maybe push your starters to 5, 6, maybe possibly 7. I mean, I think it was a good time to take Yamamoto out of his start of that 6 innings. I mean, he just did just fine. And also pitch count, that's a real thing to really take into consideration. But yeah, I think like this, maybe April, May is the best time to really let your starters, just go out there, see how long they could do until you reach the dog days of July and August and September, when you really want to be hesitant on, how long the leash is going to be for your starters.
Yeah, I definitely see both sides of the coin on this. I think if a pitcher's grooving, let him go out there. If pitch count is, well within reach, let him continue to shove. I obviously think in this case, Yamamoto going 6 strong innings, scoreless innings. I think he had around 94, 95 pitches. Perfect start for him. Perfect start, go against a bad, not a necessarily super bad team, but a team you should be dominating, and go 6 scoreless, build off of that, and then go into the future, because they do, he will be starting in this D-back series, I believe in game 3. So that'll be a test for him in Phoenix. And, we have the Braves coming in this weekend as well. So those are the teams that you want Yamamoto to be playing or pitching well against. So we'll pivot from the National Series. It was great for them to get 3 wins over there. They not only win that series by sweeping them, but they also win the season series against the Washington Nationals as well. So that's the whole thing with the whole 162. You just want to be winning these chunks of series, and everything's going to be fine. So the sky's not falling after that series. We pivot to Toronto, where it's the first time. I couldn't believe it when I heard it. It was the first time since 2016 that the Dodgers are heading north of the border to Toronto, Canada. And you got to write the post-game reports for this series. So for that 3-game sample size, especially those first two games, what did you think of the Dodgers offense, and then kind of just how they pretty much dismantled the Blue Jays for the first 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first highlight that comes to me when I think about that series is the Ohtani home run that he hit in game 1 after all those boos. But other than that, I mean, collectively, 1 through 9 was just killing Blue Jays pitching. And, another showcase that I want to do is Andy Pages just hit machine over there. Felt like he just found his bat, just found the ball, and it just found grass. So, I mean, he just did really well. I mean, pitching was pretty consistent throughout all 3 games. But, I mean, overall, offense was just the story for all 3 games. For all 2 games, really, first 2 games.
Yeah, they escaped barely with the series sweep there, dropping the final game with the bullpen game. Kind of expected it when I heard bullpen game, but when the bullpen only gives up 3 runs, you kind of expect to win that game. It just seems like the offense. Kevin Gausman's just a guy that I feel like since, he's been when he was on the Giants, was just a guy that had the Dodgers number, and that continues now into 2024, because Gausman hasn't really had a good year at all. Entering that game, he had an ERA over 5. So I expected the Dodgers maybe do a little bit more, but I think just maybe whatever his pitch selection is, especially with that sinker and the off speed, I guess the Dodgers just weren't going to touch him up. And sometimes on getaway day, the Dodgers aren't the best team out there. It seems like they are one of those teams that, once the plane is getting loaded, they're ready to get on it and go start their next series. But yeah, I'm definitely okay with the 5-1 beginning to the road trip, and with the final 3 games being in Arizona, where, we hope the Dodgers can come up with 2 of 3 in that series as well. But I'm going to go with you, Ohtani, man. I don't know why the Blue Jays fans are, I get why they're so mad that Ohtani didn't go there. But, at the end of the day, it wasn't Ohtani that was the one that was making those reports. It was, we had two tweets from credentialed, media outlets and journalists stating that, Ohtani's on a plane, or Ohtani's close to signing with the Blue Jays. And none of those happened. Both those reporters, they obviously apologized since then. They knew they made a mistake. And then immediately, I thought the funniest thing from that whole situation back in December was that it was that plane gate that day. And then I think it was on that Saturday, the day after, when Ohtani announced that he was signing with the Dodgers. So I feel for Blue Jays fans. I understand why they are a little upset. But I think it was just the perfect situation for Ohtani to home run there, to really silence the crowd like immediately. That was just something I really love to watch on my TV. But I'm even gonna highlight. I wrote an article about Andy Paz getting called up, and I touched on him in my Dodgers Note article today, and this guy's just taken off. In his short time, 73 plate appearances in the MLB. He's got a 371 average, 452 on base. This guy just looks like he's ready to play in the show. I figured the Dodgers were going to let him get, everyday at bats, everyday playing time. And it seems like the Dave Roberts and the Dodgers have kept to their word on that. He has played against lefties. He's played against righties. He's taken some time from Chris Taylor. He's taken some time from James Outman. And I feel like he's just taken the most of it. And I think at the end of the day, he's going to make the Dodgers force their hand, because I don't think there's any shot that they ever send him back down this year unless he goes on a super cold slump. Do you agree?
Yeah, at this point in time, Pages should be in that lineup. It'd be ludicrous if he wasn't.
Yeah, I think Pages is. I even made the bold prediction earlier in the season and during spring training. I thought eventually he was going to be taking somebody's job in the outfield and starting games in October, and I think he's playing to that capability right now. The ability to hit both sides of the plate, or for pitcher handedness, it is key. And the fact that he's playing above average defense and has an above average arm makes him a perfect, weapon in either you use him in right field, left field, and they've even had him play some games in center field. I just think he can be a catalyst for the bottom of that order that has been, desperate for, something. Because he does a little bit more than just getting on bases, which is what we've been begging for the bottom of the lineup between Outman, Lux, and Chris Taylor. He has power, speed, contact. The only thing that I could gripe with him about is just it seems like if you have a really good fastball, he kind of whiffs a little bit too much on him. But I saw him in Washington hit a home run. He just looks like a natural ball player, and I feel like he's just going to run away with this opportunity.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I would say Paz is definitely a big guy to look out for. I believe he already has a sac fly while we're recording this game against the D-backs, so he'll continue to go off of that. But obviously, they go 5-1 to start their road trip. Learned a lot of news about injuries. Obviously, today they announced that they put Ryan Brazier on the IL, calling up Gus Farland. But prior to that, we got updates on Brusdar Graterol. We got updates on Kyle Hurt, Walker Buehler. I think the biggest surprise to me was when I was in DC and we were asking Roberts about, Bobby Miller, who we still haven't really gotten too many updates on him. How big of an impact would it be if Bobby Miller is out for an extended period of time?
This rotation really kind of depends on Miller, I believe, even though, there's like Glasnow, Yamamoto, but I feel like Miller is really the difference maker in this rotation. And having him out, even for, him putting on the 15-day DL is really detrimental. I think it's something that I think Roberts knows deep down that, it is a loss not having him in the rotation. But at least Glasnow is picking up the slack, and Yamamoto is too. But yeah, it's just really, I'm glad that we're at least running into the situation now than later.
Yeah, I think if there's any bit of optimism I could take out of that conversation I had with Roberts was that, it seems like a lot of this stuff was very precautionary. They were just taking their time with Miller. They caught it before it got too bad or too painful for Miller himself. They said that he's still in Los Angeles, that he's about to begin his throwing program, but the longer it takes for him to begin that throwing program, the longer it's going to take for him to come back and be added to the roster, because like Jason Hayward, he already mentioned, these guys are going to need rehab starts. They're going to need rehab appearances. So even when they come back from the injury, they may be another week or two away. I mean, we see Walker Buehler. It feels like he's been in AAA or AA for the past month and a half. So it's going to take some time. I think the biggest worry I have is from Brusdar Graterol, which when we asked about him during the pregame scrum with Dave Roberts, it sounds like, he's nowhere close to returning. He ended up beginning his throwing program, ended up feeling some pain, some setbacks, and then they ended up shutting him down. Graterol was, a big piece of the Dodgers bullpen last year and is definitely a piece that they missed this year just due to the fact that he can get righties and lefties out. if Gratterall is out for an extended period of time and we already got multiple pitchers on, the IL, how big of an impact is that for just the Dodgers bullpen?
Yeah, that's really big. I mean, that's velocity. That's triple digit velocity you're missing in that bullpen, and it's not like you need triple digit velocity to win games, but he had so much movement on all of his pitches. I mean, he was a great, explosive person to have in the bullpen, and not having him and him being completely shut down is just kind of like a stab in the chest, like it's you can't really replace that at all. So it's going to be really difficult to try to pick up the pieces that he has.
Yeah, and another, big piece of the bullpen, at least, down the line, is Kyle Hurt. The fact that he ended up being placed on the 15-day IL. I don't know if it's like, the Dodgers like to do a lot of these phantom IL stints just to either control innings or just control their health and making sure that they're ready for, the latter of the season. But, losing him for the foreseeable future is a big blow as well. I hope that, all these guys that we've mentioned as well, including, Blake Trinan, who we haven't even talked about. I hope they're all available, come August, September, and October, because that's when the Dodgers are desperately going to need these arms, especially in, high leverage situations. And all those guys have shown the ability, to be there and step up in the big moments. In terms of, we talked about him, Adrian, Andy Paz. It looks like he should stay up in the majors, but that leaves the Dodgers with a huge question, and that's who is going to be the odd man out. And, we talked about Jason Hayward briefly, but, Jason Hayward, it sounds like he's nowhere close to return as well. They updated prior to game 1 of the D-backs today. It seems like he's even further along than what the Dodgers have hoped. When the time comes, what is the Dodgers move? Like, do they just put Hayward on the 60-day IL? Do they phantom IL Chris Taylor? Say you're Andrew Friedman. What are you doing to kind of restructure the roster that way you're allowed to keep Andy Paz doing what he's doing?
I believe that keeping Jason Hayward anywhere near the lineup is really crucial because he has the veteran years on him. He'll basically take Pages under his wing when that time of playoff baseball comes. So that'll be, I'm pretty sure Friedman had that in mind preseason. But odd man out, I really don't want to admit this at all because he's one of my favorite players. But I mean, Chris Taylor is just, you can't have few bloops here now and then every 30 at bats. You come time of July, August, I mean, there's going to be no excuse for that if the Dodgers really want to make a playoff push. And I know they're really betting on Outman or Lux to get it going. But then again, I don't know what Friedman has, what he's going to pull under his sleeve. But yeah, I just feel like having Hayward kind of guide Pages is a very, they should really keep that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with it. I think Hayward's value comes the fact that he's a left-handed batter. Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, these guys are right-handed. The Dodgers have a good mix of righties and lefties, but the ones they're all tier lineup, their A tier plus lineup is the all lefty lineup, and Jason Hayward is crucial in that aspect. Jason Hayward is still an elite glove in the outfield, and Jason Hayward, like you mentioned, is a veteran that can contribute and help out with the growth of these rookies. So I think at the end of the day, when Hayward is ready to return, I imagine they're going to choose him over, Chris Taylor. And I don't think the Dodgers are going to outright release Chris Taylor. I've seen that all on social media as well, where, just DFA him or do this. They can't DFA that guy who's due almost $30 million collectively over the next 2 years. Your only options are really just to trade him or, just maybe he goes on the IL and he just misses the rest of the season for some whatever reason, or until he figures it out, in the minor leagues on that rehab assignment if he is put on the injured list. Kike Hernandez, he's starting to heat up a little bit now. I believe he's like 6 for his last 15. Got a couple hits in Washington, got a couple hits against the Blue Jays. I think he's a guy that just shows up in October, so I think his job is safe. And if Andy Pages continues to play as he is, his job's going to be secured for the long run as well. So James Outman is a guy that is also kind of in that territory of like, you got to hit for me lately. You got to show some, improvement on the season. And it seems like he's already starting to be platooned in center. It seems like once a lefty is starting, Andy Pajes is getting that start in center field, and Outman's on the bench. So it'll be interesting to see what the Dodgers do moving forward. But I think, thankfully, the Dodgers actually don't really have to think about it because, like I mentioned, Hayward seems like he's going to be out for the next month or two. That's where I kind of got the idea of maybe they just 60-day IL him if it has to come to that point when they have to start activating some of these players. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. But pretty much how we wrap up these segments or these episodes is we look ahead. And currently, as we're recording this, the Dodgers are playing game 1 of their 3-game series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Huge series. It's a rematch of the 2023 NLDS where, Adrian, as you know, the Dodgers were swept out of the playoffs, which ended making them go on one of the biggest offseason runs in, franchise history and MLB history. And then the Atlanta Braves come to town in Los Angeles for a weekend series. Should be a really good matchup. The Braves, I think, winning percentage-wise, have, I think, entering today the best record in baseball, tied with the Cleveland Guardians, which is also equally shocking. Going first for the D-back series, what are you looking for the Dodgers to do in this short 3-game series in the desert?
Obviously, they want to send a message even when they don't say it. I'm glad that Robert said that they're not putting extra hyper focus into this game as if they're revenge games. He's just looking at it as, it's another series. But yeah, I feel like pitching wise is going to be good. I'm really excited to see how Yamamoto does in the desert. I'm really, because he's never faced them before, and they obviously have some sneaky power in that lineup. So I'm really excited to see that. Also, offensively, I know Dodgers back in those playoffs, offense was nearly invisible. So they really just want to show out, and I'm just really excited to see how because they know they need a bounce back. So it's going to be really exciting to see that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to call back to, kind of what you touched on. And it was in Bill Plunkett's article for the Orange County Register. He put out pretty much asking Dave Roberts saying, hey, like, are these games meaningful? Are they bigger? Like, do you want to get revenge? And I do agree with Dave Roberts. I don't think the Dodgers, the way they play, they don't really put much meaning to these games just because they're the Dodgers. And I think the biggest reason is that this team is like entirely different. The team that looked defeated and lost last year isn't the same team that's here this year. Lance Lynn, he's not on this team anymore. Clayton Kershaw, he's not pitching injured right now. They filled out the rotation with a lot of other studs. But I'm interested to see, the first 2 games of the series, they're facing 2 lefties and Tommy Henry, and then the new Diamondbacks ace, Jordan Montgomery, who we saw go off for the Texas Rangers last season in their World Series run. So I want to see how the Dodgers, kind of work around those lefties. They've actually hit lefties really well this year compared to years past, which is surprising to me. But, they got the right guys in that lineup that can hit left-handed pitching, especially like Teoscar Hernandez, Kike Hernandez, and then Andy Paz. His ability, to also hit lefties is a plus as well. So that's what I'm looking forward in this series. I still expect them to take at least 2 out of the 3. But maybe they send a message and try to maybe just sweep this series. But I'm going to be, safe and say 2 out of 3 for this series. What's your prediction? 2 out of 3, or are you going balls to the wall sweep?
Man, I want to go balls to the wall sweep. I want to see it, and I feel like that'll be another huge momentum shift coming back home too.
Yeah. So, and I feel like they need it because this home series that's coming up this weekend against the Atlanta Braves, that is a big series. This is a matchup that I feel like, baseball fans and especially the league probably wants to see meet up in the playoffs. Obviously, the Braves and Phillies, that's been like a pretty big postseason matchup in October. But when you get 2 juggernauts, one from the East Coast, one from the West Coast, in the Braves and the Dodgers, 2 equally great ran organizations, it's going to be for some good baseball. And we should see some really good arms. I believe Tyler Glasnow will probably kick off that series. So in terms of what you're seeing big picture wise, what are you thinking that the Dodgers can do against this Braves team that, they still continue to show that they are, at least arguably this year, the best team in baseball? Do you think the Dodgers have something to say about that?
Yeah, it is going to be must-see baseball for that whole weekend. I'm very excited. For the past 3 years, it's been like Dodgers Dodgers Braves, I mean, those are must-see games. But yeah, I feel like the Dodgers are really going to showcase their power, especially at home now. They're really going to showcase, their new additions. The Braves are still equally a good team. I mean, I never counted them out the last couple years. I mean, they're just sneaky too. But yeah, it's just going to be great. I mean, battle of the Giants, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be a great series. Kudos to whoever's making the MLB schedule to make it on the weekend. It's unfortunate these teams are meeting so early in the season just because so much is going to change from this point in April, May, potentially in October when these two teams could meet up in the future. So it should be a great, pretty much a whole week of baseball here with the D-backs, a team that, is on the rise, made the World Series last year. And then you got two teams on the weekend between the Dodgers and the Braves that each have, World Series goals. And I think you'll see them each play, with all of their heart. And the Dodgers have a lot of MVP candidates. The Braves have their own MVP candidates. I mean, Mookie Betts is trying to win his own MVP after finishing runner-up last year. So it'll be a great set of games here. But other than that, I think that'll about do it for this, weekly rewind edition. Pretty much touched on everything that we needed to touch on, except for one thing real quick, Adrian, the uniforms. How do you feel about the uniforms being updated unofficially, but officially?
Man, I am so glad. I don't know why they waited this long. Honestly, I do not know why. My biggest thank you to them is the lettering. That's the one thing that just didn't look good on anything. Like, no jersey looked good with the small lettering. I'm glad that they're finally doing the big lettering. The discoloring too was kind of off. I didn't like how they changed the Dodger gown white to like kind of a cream-ish color. That didn't look right either. But yeah, I'm thanking the baseball gods finally.
Yeah, our own Steve Webb for Dodgers Beat, he wrote an article kind of linking to everything, Jeff Passan put out on his ESPN article. My big takeaway is that there really isn't no set answer of what is going to happen. All that was discussed was just a letter from the Players Association given to the players. Nike hasn't commented on this. Fanatics hasn't commented on this at all either. So there's still no definite answer that they will be updating these jerseys in 2025. However, have always been under indication that was going to happen inevitably. I think they were going to read the backlash, but I don't think anything's going to be changing this year just because they already manufactured the jerseys. They already sent them out. Pretty much 2024, that's the, the slate of, the buffer jerseys. 2025 is when they'll revert back. I like the idea of bringing back, the big lettering. I feel like you should be able to see the team and the players that are playing for that team on the back of their jersey. My big thing is you brought up the discoloration. In that memo, it seems like nothing with the material or anything is going to be changing, which kind of doesn't bode well for the Dodgers, where they went from, that crisp, clean white to that kind of off-color cream. Hopefully that gets updated for next year because it is, if you're someone that looks at the Dodgers jerseys day in and day out, watching the team, it is, eye-popping. But for the casual fan, most people don't really bat an eye. Most people didn't really bat an eye, this season regardless, except for the hardcore fans. But thankfully our voices were heard and that they're going to eventually update these jerseys. But other than that, now that about does it for this episode of the Bleed Los podcast. Adrian, thank you for coming on to discuss baseball. And like I said, if you're listening to the show, be sure to subscribe, be sure to visit the website, and be sure to check out all of Adrian's work. He'll be doing post-game recaps and anything else for DodgersBeat.com. And Adrian, where else can people find you? If you want to plug your socials or anything?
Oh yeah. So on my, I have my Instagram. It's Adrian N01R. I know I need to change it, but there's that. My Twitter is just Adrian, capital M, _16. And that's pretty much where I'll just post all my stuff.
Alrighty. Well, we're looking forward to some more work from you, working for DodgersBeat.com, and then occasionally coming on the Bleed Los podcast. So thank you for coming on, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thank you, guys.
This episode has been brought to you by BetOnline. The game starts here.